One, two, three, four.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time, screen time, screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where we review the programming the other critics ignore, stuff made for kids. Find out what to watch for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Katie.
And I have a 14-year-old and two 11-year-olds.
And I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. Today, we are reviewing Curses on Apple TV. I have to say it like that because there is an exclamation point in the title. Why are we reviewing it? Well, as we mentioned in our last review, new spooky shows are kind of thin on the ground this year. This one actually premiered last year, but its second season just came out and it's new to us, and it definitely seemed to fit the spooky bill. Brief description, it is an animated Apple TV Plus series that dropped its first 10-episode season on October 27th, 2023. Its second season of 10 episodes came out on October 4th of this year, 2024. It is rated, somewhat surprisingly, but I'm sure we'll get into it, TVG. It looks pretty spooky even just from the trailer, so we'll see about that. Episodes are in that 23 to 25 minute range.
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. We watched the first 2 episodes for our review. The show is produced by DreamWorks Animation, long a workhorse in the kids' animation space. The brief summary, according to IMDb, goes like this. When a generations-long family curse turns Alex Vanderhoeven to stone, it's up to his 2 kids, Pandora and Russ, and his wife Sky, to return artifacts stolen by their ancestors to their rightful homes to finally lift the curse for good.
Katie, did you like it?
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I love it so much. How about you?
I did like it. Although I question the G rating a little bit.
Same. Okay, let's get into it. Tell me about why you question the G rating.
Okay, it was like legitimately scary in parts. And for me, a G rating is like, that means puff and rock.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to watch this with my
Toddler.
2-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah. So Apple TV Plus, what are you doing with the ratings? Like who's deciding that ratings these days? But maybe it's like some kind of algorithm that decides and it just doesn't account for like horror.
Yeah, because the imagery, even like beyond the scares, the imagery can be a bit even gory. I would not rate this a TVG, despite the fact that I genuinely love it. Like, I just think it's totally mislabeled.
Yeah, I think that's good to get that out there. But I did like it, and I watched it with my kids, and they were even like, this is for little kids?
Yes.
Yeah.
We had refugees in our home for a week. My sister-in-law was escaping Hurricane Milton. So we are recording this a little bit in advance. But she was here with her kids, and we all watched it together. And her youngest is 4, and it was too scary. It was too scary.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
So why did you like it?
I mean, come on. The parents are an archaeologist and a conservator. This is just like nerd grown-up catnip, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm skipping a little bit ahead. Like, why is this for you a grown-up? Even though it's not made for us, what is there for parents to like?
So I found the plot to be genuinely compelling, and there was some honest exploration of Sky, the mother's internal struggle with giving her kids more independence and allowing to put themselves in dangerous situations and trusting them to make their own choices and to do the right thing, which I, as a parent, found really compelling, even separate and apart from just the fun story of cursed objects.
Yeah, that's very relatable. I went to a farmer's market, not a big one, with my kids last weekend, and I gave them some money, and I was like, let's meet here in 10 minutes. You can pick out like a pastry or something. And then I bought the vegetables. I did not see them the whole time. And I got to the meeting spot and they weren't there. And I was like, I lost my kids. And then I turned around and they were right there. So I would never put my kids in charge of like haunted artifacts. But yeah, that is a relatable parenting dilemma that you need to work through.
But Deborah, what if the alternative was Jeremy being turned to stone? Like, would that push you to give your kids that extra level of responsibility?
I guess. Yeah, I guess. For me, I liked it as a grown-up, even though it's not made for grown-ups, because this is the level of scary that I can handle.
Yes.
I was like driving on the highway outside of the Twin Cities yesterday, and there are all these billboards advertising like spooky haunted tours at like a farm. And I can't even look at those billboards. And like, that's a real conundrum because I'm driving. I can't close my eyes, but I'm like focusing really in on like the license plate in front of me so that my eyes do not stray to see this like scary clown that's making a spooky face over the highway. So yeah, Curses is made for children and me.
Yep. No, I agree. It is also made for me. I do not enjoy seeing terrifying billboards, but I don't have quite that dramatic a reaction. But yeah, I just thought so much about this show was perfect. The only thing I thought could give grown-ups, say, of our advanced age pause would be like, we were definitely reared on the Disney style of animation. And I don't want to call it realistic because obviously the body shapes of Disney heroines are crazy, but there is a bit more realism to the traditional hand-drawn animation look that we grew up with. And this is very much not that. So it took me a couple beats to get used to the animation style, but I did pretty quickly and, again, loved the show a lot. So if that bothers you, that could give you pause.
You and my kids, they were like, this looks CGI'd.
Well, kids, everything is now, so.
I know. So let's go back to the question I skipped. Why isn't this made for grown-ups? What was hard for you to connect with in Curses, if anything?
Again, just as a crotchety old parent, Pan, the daughter, like her defining characteristic is that she's a skateboarder and she likes to skateboard in the house. And the whole time I was just like, oh man, I would just have such a hard time tolerating that as a parent.
Yeah.
What did you think? Why wasn't this for grown-ups, maybe?
I wanted to know more history. Like, I wanted more of a lesson about, like, why maybe Western culture museums shouldn't have pillaged and plundered across the British Empire.
Yeah.
And why it's, like, actually wrong that so many Western cultural institutions have, like, art and artifacts from around the world. Like, I wanted like kind of I guess like a TED Talk.
Yeah.
About that, which isn't part of this cartoon. Like, I liked that plot line, but I felt like there wasn't a lot of explaining around that.
Yeah, and it still is very much an open question at a lot of institutions today. So you're right. That is maybe how you should cast your gritty HBO reboot and be like, I don't want a fiction story. I just want a documentary series.
Totally. So let's get into the weeds a little bit. How about the cast and characters? Was there anybody that you particularly loved or hated?
I really loved Skye. I loved the complexity they allowed her. I really liked their pilot friend, Margie, voiced by the incomparable Rhea Perlman. She flies them everywhere in her little Baloo-style water plane. And doesn't ask too many questions and is just like very curt and no nonsense, but she clearly loves everyone. So I enjoyed that character very much. I am of two minds about one of their little artifact sidekicks. So they have two artifact sidekicks. They're named Stanley and Larry. Stanley seems fine. He's lovely. Larry's character design, listeners, he is a skull. with no arms, legs, but his arms are like braids on the side of his skull. So it's like a skull with a beard, part of which is braided, and those braids function as arms for like gesturing and grabbing things. And I did not care for that. I found it weird at every turn, despite the fact that the character is lovely and I love the show. Every single
Mm-hmm.
time Larry like gestured or picked something up with his beard braids, I was weirded out.
I loved Stanley and Larry. I would watch a show just with them. They were funny. I like always love the sidekick who's there for comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that pair a lot. I also liked the mom. I mean, I think I just didn't like the dad because he's got this like, to totally spoil it, listeners, he's like haunted himself. And he's like, seems normal in the presence of his family, but then he's like doing dastardly dangerous things on the side and he's putting his family in danger. So, I mean, I just didn't like him because you're supposed to be afraid of his character.
He's putting his family at risk and he's not telling them. He had two children with Sky without informing her of like inherent danger. I mean, it would be like getting married and having kids with someone and not informing them about a horrible genetic trait that you were sure to pass down to your children. Like, it's just irresponsible to not tell your spouse.
Or like, guess what? I have a $400,000 in medical debt.
Exactly.
Some,
Yeah.
you know, like on your 1 year anniversary or something.
So he
Yeah.
seems like a lovely husband and father. His kids love him. His wife loves him. But yeah, total jerk move to not disclose any of this before you just abruptly become a statue.
Yeah, and I feel like if this were like a novel or a movie or something, he'd be like, I mentioned that. Like kind of a gaslighting
Oh,
thing.
yeah,
Like,
of course. I told you my family had secrets.
so any thoughts on the writing?
I'm not sure whether this fits neatly in the writing or the structure section, but I do like how it's episodic in that each week for the most part, each week they are dealing with a different artifact, but yet there is a serialized through line. Because
Hmm.
I enjoy shows that require just enough continued watching, but like at the same time, if I miss an episode or two, it's not going to be a giant deal. I appreciate that.
Totally. And I also thought, because we started at the second season, and they allude to what happened in the first season enough to like catch you up, but at the same time not spoil it, and also at the same time make you want to go back and watch the first season, which is a hard balance to achieve in like, I don't know, 2 minutes of time.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some really effective writing, and we have gone back and are almost done with the first season now. So it worked.
Nice. We talked a little bit about the look of the show already, but I have to mention that to me, like the spookiest thing about Curses was at the beginning, before the show even starts, you see the classic DreamWorks still of a child sitting in a tree. It's just like the production company logo that appears before all their shows. And then the kid's eyes like turn and all these vines grow in and it looks really spooky and it perfectly sets the tone for the show.
Yeah, I do kind of love how DreamWorks does that with their logo with every show. I think it's really cute.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've established that we like the show. What do you think makes this okay or good for kids?
Okay, I think it was last year when we read that like good housekeeping article.
We read a lot of good housekeeping articles, but go
So
on.
this one was about why it's good for kids to be scared in a
Mm-hmm.
fictional, like scared by something fictional,
Mm-hmm.
because it helps them like feel what it feels like to be scared in like a safe place and like overcome those feelings. So I think this is a good example of that kind of show. It's not too scary for someone who's like upper elementary or even early elementary, maybe. But you get to feel a little bit of that adrenaline and anxiety from being scared, but then it's all like resolved in a age appropriate way.
And I think that's exactly the trajectory we've gone on with my sixth grader, sorry, with my 6-year-old, in that when we first turned it on, he was like, whoa, no, too scary. This is making me uncomfortable. But you kind of saw him get used to it, understand that by the end of the episode, most likely everything would be resolved. And we just talked a little bit about how, hey, they are doing this on purpose. They wrote it to be scary and to make you feel these things so they could fix it all by the end. And he's just rolled with it just fine. He's really enjoying it. All right. So what then makes this inappropriate or otherwise bad for kids? I think here is where we just state again that we feel like it's inappropriately rated. And that maybe for the youngest of kids, you would exercise caution. But again, this is just like a scale that every grown-up has to judge their own comfort level on, like how comfortable are they with having their kids be scared. I don't, as we've stated, we don't think it's actively harmful in any way, but there is some gory imagery and some genuine scares. So
maybe for the younger set, go watch Spooky Buddies instead of this,
or like see what their tolerance is for something that is lower on the scale, like a Spooky Buddies or a Bad Guys Haunted Heist. And if they're interested and it feels like they want more, give this a try.
Let's move on to our evergreen questions. What adult movie or show does this compare to?
I took notes everywhere and I did not write something down for this. I am so sorry. What adult show did you compare it to?
It made me think of like Indiana Jones movies. It made me think of National Treasure a little bit. Anything where there's like haunted ancient artifacts that are mad that they're taken from their rightful owners.
Yeah.
Also a little bit Goonies, because like a lot of it takes place in like this underground, I don't know, labyrinth. So that's why it made me think of the Goonies a little bit. And those are all shows that are not necessarily just for adults, but that's where I landed.
I guess I was thinking more along the lines of like a movie about a family that like has to come together and work together as a family, even though they normally wouldn't. And for some reason, I had the Black Widow movie stuck in my head, which I saw when it came out in theaters, and I didn't think made much of an impression on my brain. But there you go. This brought that up for me.
Were you able to cast the gritty HBO reboot?
Partially. I did think that the dad was giving off major Krasinski vibes, and then I looked up the show, and he's actually an EP.
Oh,
yeah,
that makes sense.
So it's kind of a Krasinski joint, but I felt like the dad could be played easily by John Krasinski. And then I obviously had to age up when I was thinking about the kids, because as we've established, we're really bad at casting actual kid actors. But I thought Yara Shahidi could do a good Pan.
Oh, yeah, she would be good.
But that's all I got. How about you?
Okay, so Leonardo DiCaprio was recently in the news because he had like dinner with his very young girlfriend and her parents. He might be older than her parents. So I would cast him as the dad, as sort of like just a little bit of, I don't know, punishment for him for his like, because doesn't he like always dump the girlfriend when she turns like 24 or something?
Yep, it's his.
And
curse.
I would make him work with an award-winning actress who's like around his age. And then I was like trying to think of who's around his age, like obviously Kate Winslet. And I was thinking of like, oh, maybe Amy Adams, but she's probably like 10 years younger than him. I don't know. Hollywood is so weird for casting. And actually, if he's around 50, so he's like, that's a grandpa age in a lot of parts of the country.
Yep.
But anyway, I would make him be the dad who's got like a double side, because he could really pull that off. Like he's very charming, but then he's got that like Tom Ripley kind of face where he can go either way. He can be evil or charming.
You know, we watched the Taylor Sheridan joint Lioness last year, starring Zoe Saldana, and she played like a total badass undercover agent, or like director of undercover agents. I don't know. My
Yeah.
point is, she could maybe do a good Sky, although you're right, she is probably 10 years younger than Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, and once again, I fail at the kids because I don't know any child actors very well. But I would cast as the Larry and Charlie?
Stanley.
Gary?
Stanley.
Stanley? I would cast Charlene Yi and Awkwafina together in those roles. I think that would be hilarious.
Which one would be the rolling skull with the braid arms?
Awkwafina, for sure. Was it better when we were kids?
No, as we talked about last week, we just watched the scary movies. We didn't have things made for a younger audience that were still good.
Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
100% yes. There was a moment there when my kids were like, we don't like this, it's too scary. And I was like, not allowed. I want to continue watching it. So I probably would have had they not come around, but they have.
Nice. Yeah, I think my kids are into it and we're going to watch more of it.
Awesome.
But I want to see what happens, so I would watch it by myself if I have to. Ratings?
5 stars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. How
I'm gonna
about
go
you?
4 stars. Temper your rating just a little bit.
This
For
never happens.
For the CGI. Yeah.
For the CGI and for the inappropriate rating, which has nothing to do with the quality of the show.
Right. So I think this is in our see it or skip it question is obviously a see it.
Obviously, I see it. Can I say something about the animation that I thought was weird? Just to append it on the end of the show.
course.
Okay, so the knees and the joints, like the elbows and the knees of all the characters are like weirdly ragdoll. Like they come in at like pinched points, which makes them all look like Raggedy Ann dolls, which is a weird look to me. All right, that's it. It's not
I'm
all
gonna have
that
to watch
important.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening to our review of Curses. Next week, we'll be back with a conversation about screen time in the news. If you enjoyed our show today, please recommend the show to one friend you think would enjoy it too. We love growing our community of parents for sanity and screen time. Never want to miss our up-to-the-minute thoughts about screen time? Head over to our website at myscreentime2.com to subscribe to updates and make sure you never miss an episode. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to, and sometimes because we like to. Bye!
Screen time, screen time, screen time.